Okay, welcome back. We've just been going over the introduction to your research task for term 2. Now, the next step, which is the hard step, is coming up with some kind of hypothesis about a geographical problem or issue in your area. And what you have to think of is what kind of problems are there in your area. Relates to economic geography, environmental geography, fluvial geomorphology, urban geography, and you need to think to yourself, what is this geographical problem? How is it affecting people? What is the problem causing? How is it changing the situation? Where is it actually occurring, and how can I solve it? So to dive into it, you need to look at things in what we call a geographical perspective, which we will look at now. Now, the geographical perspective means you can't just focus on any problem, you have to focus on a geographical problem. And you have to look at the problem from a geographical perspective, which means you have to look up and figure out for yourself what has caused the problem, what geographical effect has caused the problem, how is this affecting people in a geographic way, how do I solve this in a geographic way, and where is this whole thing occurring. And the first step to that is, well, what area are you looking at? Is it your neighborhood? Is it your community? Is it down the road? How is it affecting people? What are people doing that is affecting the environment or the city, and how is it changing over space and time? You need to now follow this kind of model when you are looking at your hypothesis. You have to find some kind of geographical problem in your area. You have to then look at what is causing this problem, how are those causes impacting people or the environment, what effects do they lead to, and finally, what solutions can you give, how can you solve this problem. That's our geographical perspective model. Now, these are some examples that are included for you. I don't want you to just choose randomly out of this list, but these give you a guideline on what kinds of projects you can look at, or hypotheses you can make up. So if you're interested in climate and weather, well, one of the examples is, well, you would want to analyze the weather patterns and data over a long period in the Pretoria CBD, or you want to look at how the local climate in Gauteng is affecting or impacting settlements and local farming. As an example for the geomorphology, you might want to see what factors are influencing the flow of, say, the Vaal River or the Yekske River. You can read through these yourself. For settlement geography, how is transport affecting certain parts of local communities? How is lack of planning affecting people, or how is infrastructure problems affecting people's lives? And in final term, an example as well, how are jobs being replaced by technology and automation in your neighborhood, as an example. Now, after you have a look at those, think a bit about what's affecting your local community, because that makes it much easier to study. Plus, you are an expert in your local area, so you will be the one who knows how best to study that problem and what solutions would be appropriate for your community. Alright, so let's go through we'll go through those steps and how to go through them. Now, the first step, this is, I think, about 9 or 10 steps, right? Step 1 was how to come up with a hypothesis. So once you've decided on a problem, you will then put it all into one sentence saying, where is this problem? What is going on? How ought it to be? What should the situation be like? How is the normal situation changing? And how is it affecting people? Because that's what your curriculum is actually trying to teach you, to think of this geographical perspective. These just give you an example. So the first one is an analysis, and it probably should be an analysis of how weather patterns and climatic data over a longer period in the Pretoria CBD demonstrate the negative impact of climate change. It's quite a mouthful, but it gives you a great starting point for a hypothesis. It tells you what the geographical problem is, how it's affecting a spatial area, what the exact area of research was, and what is the process that's happening. A second example is of geomorphology, where it's pollution on, in, / along the Vaal River is due to the increase in contaminants created by the Vaal Colliery and underground water. So again, that includes my spatial location, my spatial process, and a spatial pattern to my actual problem. And these are great because they give you there's lots of scope for research to take place. Once you've got your hypothesis, you need to now map the area. It should be A4 or smaller. You need to show what area you're looking at. You need to draw a buffer zone around it, and you should have a legend and a key. It should be an appropriate scale as well, and it should be a recent. Step 3 is doing some background research on the area. So go and look online. What's the population of the area? What's the climate like? Are there other newspaper articles about it? What's the area? What's its spatial location on the map? Whereabouts in South Africa is it? Step 4 is when you collect sources. So you can either have primary and secondary sources. Primary including things like asking someone direct questions, going there yourself, looking at it. Obviously these you can't do during lockdown, but you can definitely still email people, and there's no reason you can't have digital interviews with people either, as long as those go into your appendix or an annexure at the end of your project. Secondary data sources would then be second-hand sources like newspaper articles, stats from the government, books for the internet. Alright, so analyzing your data, that is when you would look at all the information you found and discuss some of what exactly is happening. Come up with graphs, sketches, photographs, and you must then put together, or you're basically evaluating all your the information that you have found so far. Step 6 is when you make recommendations and you provide some solutions. Now these have to be original, meaning you can't just look online or parrot whatever someone else has said. They have to be realistic in terms of being financially realistic, real world solutions, things that might actually work. Then step 7 is when you accept or reject your hypothesis in your conclusion. You would say, I accept my hypothesis, or I reject it for the following reasons. You have to have reasons for that. Step 8 is putting, as we discussed, your bibliography together, listing all your websites, your sources, and you should use the Harvard system, which I'll show you about later. I'll explain later. And then you submit it, and you put together a nice cover page for it that represents your hypothesis as well. Okay, so those are your 9 steps, and we'll leave it at this point until we go into some examples of some actual topics that might help you.